I see Luis all the time, run into him.
Yeah.
Seems to be doing okay. He really wants to get back involved.
No. Is he retired?
Yes.
Or he worked for the county? Wow.
Yeah, and then he went private. Because the server still is down.
Okay, we'll come to order. We'll wait for Bob.
Recording in progress.
Thank you. Erica, could you do a roll call and announce present staff members and instruct viewers on how they can participate, please?
Sure. Today in the chambers, we have Chair Silva,
Yes.
Vice Chair Latassa,
Yes.
Commissioner Bluth,
Here.
Commissioner Freeman. Commissioner Palmer appears to be absent. Commissioner Pauly also appears to be absent. And with us, Commissioner Stoker.
Here.
Great. Our staff members present today are Planning Manager Levi Hill, our Senior Associate Planner Matthew Buggart, and myself, Recording Secretary Erica Barrera. Information on participating in this meeting and providing public comment, including remotely by Zoom or telephone, is on this meeting's agenda, which is online at monterey.gov/agendas. Remote commenters will be muted until it's their turn to speak, and a timer will be shown on the screen. If you're connected on Zoom, the timer is accurate with no delay. In the chamber, we recommend keeping phones and devices muted to prevent audio interference with the meeting. Thank you for participating in your city government.
Thank you, Erica. We're going to start with consent for the just for the minutes, and then we'll move on to the other consent items. Comments on minutes?
No comment.
Can we get a roll call, or can we get a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as part of the consent
I'll
agenda.
second that.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Bluth, second by Commissioner Latassa. Roll call, please, Erica.
Sure. Chair Silva?
Abstain.
Okay.
I'm sorry, before we go forward, we should probably ask for public comment on each of the consent items.
I was going to do that right after. Because I didn't think there would be a whole lot of comments on.
Probably not, but we still need to check for
Very
each
good.
item.
Okay, well, let's roll the tape back a little bit, and if there's anybody in chambers or online that wishes to make a comment or pull one of the consent items, you may do so. Anybody online, Erica?
There are no hands raised.
Okay, well, let's get back. We have a motion and a second, and we'll just conclude the approval of the minutes.
Okay, so Chair Silva,
Abstain.
okay. Vice Chair Latassa,
Yes.
Commissioner Bluth,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
okay. Commissioner Palmer is absent, along with Commissioner Pauly. Commissioner Stoker.
Yes.
Okay, the minutes have been approved.
Thanks, Erica. We're going to move now to items 3 through 5, which are still on the consent. Is there anybody in chambers or online that wishes to pull one of these items?
I would like to pull the item on reasonable accommodation. I didn't quite understand it.
So can we get?
And I'll
I
note,
would like to pull item number 4, vehicle storage item.
and I believe we have a recusal for item number 5, Commissioners, or I'm sorry, is item number 4, which is going to be Commissioner Stoker has reached out to recuse himself from that. So when we get to that item, if you would step out.
And for the record, Commissioner Palmer has joined. All right, so let's break this out sequentially. So we'll start with number 3.
I believe that's the only item that has not been
It's
pulled.
the only item that's not being pulled. So we'll just do a separate vote on number 3. And can we get a roll call, please?
Well, I don't think we have a motion yet. do we?
Yeah.
Oh, I keep forgetting that.
I think I would like to make a motion about the roosters, which is item number 3. To
Touche.
approve the staff recommendation.
Very good. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Stoker and a second by Commissioner Bluth to approve the prohibition of the roosters. Now can we get a roll call vote?
Sure. Chair Silva.
Yes.
Vice Chair Latassa.
Yes.
Commissioner Bluth.
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman.
Yes.
Commissioner Palmer.
Yes.
and Commissioner Stoker.
Yes.
The roosters have been approved.
The roosters have been
What
approved.
about those roosters?
Cock-a-doodle-doo. Okay, we're going to move to item number 4. Recommend the city council amend the Monterey City Code to prohibit vehicle storage on properties with both industrial administration research and multifamily residential overlay zoning. And Levi, will you be doing a report on this one?
I will. Give me just a moment. I'll pull it up.
Levi, if it's any help, I was the one that pulled this item, and I had a very minor question. So I don't.
It'll be a
don't-
brief
don't have to do a
presentation.
full-on,
Yeah, it'll
whatever
be
you feel is a minimal accepted presentation.
sure. It'll be quick. So yes, the next item is going to be a zoning amendment to prohibit vehicle storage in the IR and MF zoning district. This is an amendment to Chapter 38 of the Monterey City Code. Staff recommendation is that the Planning Commission hold a public hearing and adopt a resolution recommending to the City Council an amendment to the zoning code to clarify. Oh, I'm sorry, that is a typo. Sorry, zoning code to prohibit vehicle storage in the IR MF zoning district.
Levi, can I just interrupt? The item that I can't vote on is item number 6.
Oh,
Five Lower Ragsdale?
Yes, because
You're correct. I'm sorry, Commissioner Stoker. Okay.
Terry was trying to get me to leave the room.
Give me just a moment. Okay. So once again, the recommendation is that the Planning Commission hold a public hearing and adopt a resolution recommending to the City Council a zoning amendment to prohibit vehicle storage on properties zone industrial administration research and multi-family residential overlay. So as some of you may recall, in 2024, the housing element was adopted and approved by this commission and then ultimately City Council, and included a series of programs in the Housing Action Plan. One of those programs was Housing Element Program 2L, which is a moratorium on vehicle storage. There's a lot of text here. This is just a verbatim text from the Housing Action Plan. I won't read all of that, but essentially it identified the area on the south side of Garden Road as properties that are zoned IR and currently allow vehicle storage, and also identified these areas as potential housing sites. So with that, the housing element set out a program that would direct staff to initiate a zoning amendment that would prohibit vehicle storage in this section of the city that has the IR zoning and the multifamily zoning. So with that, there's a proposed amendment before you this evening to propose an elimination of the vehicle storage use for properties that are zoned, and this is a distinction here, properties that are zoned IR and also include that multifamily residential overlay. And specifically, we're talking about these sites right here. This is our MF overlay on the south side of Garden Road that is also zoned IR. So the elimination of the vehicle storage use would not affect all IR properties in the city, just these properties shown on the screen that are also carry that multifamily zoning overlay. And with that, the staff is recommending that the Planning Commission hold the public hearing and adopt a resolution recommending the City Council amend the zoning code to prohibit vehicle storage on properties zoned IR MF. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
what about the people who already have vehicle storage there?
So there's no vehicle storage as a principally permitted use or a primary use in on these properties.
Oh, thanks, Levi. So my only question was about the 3-year term. I understand the rationale for the motion, for the I guess it would be the amendment, but I don't understand why the 3-year term.
I can get it. It's a 3-year term in the program language?
Yeah, it's in
You take it.
So when we were crafting the housing element, we actually were thinking about an urgency ordinance and that it would be good for 3 years. And that was the idea that we came up with. When we were working with our city attorney's office, you can't create an urgency ordinance if there's not currently like imminent applications or an urgent situation. And the intent of the housing element program was to reserve the multifamily properties that are overlay for either economic or residential uses. So the approach we took was just to prohibit it in that area with the multifamily overlay. So the housing element program talks about a 3-year urgency ordinance. And what we did is we just went ahead and prohibited that use in the multifamily overlay.
Okay, so what happens after 3 years?
So as written, it'll just keep going on, the prohibition in the multifamily area for vehicle storage.
So what is the 3-year, I don't understand, to read the ordinance. Or
The ordinance doesn't include it. It was just the housing element program that included that language. The ordinance on page, let's get your packet, page 20, there's one sentence we're adding to the ordinance, and it's under vehicle storage use permit, so it'll be allowed in all the other IR areas, but it'll be prohibited on properties with multifamily residential overlay district zoning. So it just won't be allowed on between Garden Road and Highway 68, which was our priority area for infill
So I was
housing.
misreading part of the previous ordinance.
You weren't misreading it.
mean,
That's
it was-
yeah, that's what the housing element program said, but to implement that, we're proposing a strict prohibition in that particular area.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Any other questions? Is there anybody in chambers or online that wishes to speak before this item?
Hello. That area has, I don't know, I think they're calling them condos that are basically huge garages with a loft that are there to store cars for, Concours d'Elegance is very, very popular in our area, and it brings a lot of money into the Monterey Peninsula. And there are buildings there that store cars in that area. No? He's shaking his head no.
So after the public comments close, I'll be happy to answer the question if the chair requests.
Is there anybody else in chambers or online that wishes to speak?
There are no hands raised.
I'd like to get clarification, because I thought the car condos were further down on 68 and not on Garden.
So there's 2 projects right now in the city of Monterey. One is on Lower Ragsdale, is one car condominium project. The second one, I believe, is at 2969 Monterey Salinas Highway, and it's in a different area. The multifamily overlay that we're looking, or that's been adopted, is between Garden Road and Highway 68. The other 2 sites are in different areas of the city with IR zoning.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring this back to the commission. Any final comments, deliberations?
I just have a question for staff, and it isn't directly related to it, sideways. I thought at one time Ryan Ranch was being looked at to possibly allow housing too.
So when we were looking and preparing the housing element, one of the key factors is where and how are we going to locate housing? And as we looked at Ryan Ranch and the airport safety zones that go sort of right through the middle of it, I don't believe any of that area was designated for housing other than our Fort Ord property, which is north of Ryan Ranch. And that's considered sort of a buffer area in our housing element with 1,200 housing units.
Okay, so nothing in Ryan Ranch. So
Not that I remember. Do you remember? Yeah, I don't believe
So
so.
that the car storage that's there has nothing to do with this. It doesn't matter.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry for nodding my head during public comment. I apologize. I see this as a reasonable proposal since we'll be building housing there, and it'll be a up and coming neighborhood and business district. I don't see the need for that kind of business in that district when we have other areas that would be more appropriate.
I agree with Commissioner Palmer. And I think that this is something that is probably inappropriate for Garden Road or the multifamily overlay. And so I think it rightly belongs on the consent agenda. It's not that controversial.
Well, it's off of consent agenda, so we probably need to motion to approve this item, and I would do so.
Second.
So we have a motion to approve by Commissioner Stoker and a second by Vice Chair Latassa.
Yes.
And can we get a roll call, please?
Sure. Chair Silva?
Yes. Point of order. Commissioner Pauly came in late, and so you'll abstain. Okay.
I have him marked coming in at 4:13, and I'll mark him abstained from this item. So Chair Silva,
Yes.
Vice Chair Latassa,
Yes.
Commissioner Bluth,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Palmer,
Yes.
and Commissioner Stoker.
Yes.
Okay, that item's been approved.
Thank you, Erica. Okay, now we're going to move to item number 5, and we would like to get a brief staff report for recommend the City Council amend the Monterey City Code to clarify the city's reasonable accommodation regulations. Levi.
Yes, thank you. Yes, this next item is a zoning amendment to clarify the city's reasonable accommodation regulations. And the staff recommendation is that the Planning Commission hold a public hearing and adopt a resolution recommending that the City Council amend the zoning code to clarify the city's reasonable accommodation regulations. A little bit of background on this item. The state law actually requires cities to adopt a procedure that allows applicants to request reasonable accommodations from various standards, property development standards. It's intended for persons with disabilities seeking equal access under the Federal Fair Housing Act and the California Fair Employment and Housing Act, and the application of zoning laws and other land use regulations, policies, and procedures. So currently, the municipal code contains a procedure that satisfies this requirement, and that's located in Monterey City Code, Chapter 38, Article 30. And the city receives approximately 1 to 2 reasonable accommodation requests each year. And some of these examples include things like requests for relief from setbacks or lot cover standards for wheelchair lifts and other type of accessibility improvements. So typically minor things that are necessary for fair housing for those with disabilities. And similar to our previous item, there was actually a housing element program that addressed this issue that identified some lack of clarity in our current reasonable accommodation regulations. And again, I'll spare us from reading the entire program language and jump to the proposed amendment. But essentially, the city is proposing to eliminate sections 38.226.b and 38.227.b, and these require that reasonable accommodation requests be considered by the whatever level of review is reviewing a development application. And that could be a commission similar to this one, or formerly our architectural review committee, or even our zoning administrator. And those are discretionary bodies that really it's inappropriate under the state law for there to be that level of discretion being applied to reasonable accommodation requests. So the proposed amendment would remove that provision and would limit the review of reasonable accommodation requests to simply a staff level review and not that discretionary hearing review. In addition to that, elimination of those two provisions, there would be a new provision that's incorporated that would create an appeal process for when if staff were to deny a reasonable accommodation request, and that process does not exist today. So it creates that appeal process, and then it would designate the Disabled Access Appeals Board to hear those appeals. And with that, staff's recommending that the Planning Commission hold the public hearing and adopt a resolution recommending the City Council amend the zoning code to clarify the city's reasonable accommodation regulations. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Levi. Any questions? Go ahead.
I'm a little confused because I used to be on that board and we used to deal with it a bunch. So how is this changing? This was back 10 years ago. But we reviewed a number of them. Typically, they were brought to us by the building department.
Yeah, so what you were reviewing was where it may not comply with the building code. And so that's what historically our Disabled Access Board has reviewed. This creates, and it's actually, we have an existing process for planning entitlements. In fact, there was one not too long ago with an elevator at the back of the house that didn't, I think, either meets, I think, a setback requirement. And then we brought that application to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission approved it. When we were having our housing element reviewed to encourage or to be compliant with state direction, the review in front of the Planning Commission was considered too much. And so what this does is it eliminates that, and all of the reasonable accommodation requests will be only reviewed at the staff level. So if we look at it and say, yes, this makes sense, we will approve the reasonable accommodation. It won't require a variance. And then it will go, if, for example, we deny that application or approve it, the applicant, or maybe we approve it with a condition they don't like, they will appeal that to the Disabled Access Board. So it won't come in front of the Planning Commission or require a variance hearing anymore, like that one did. And that was particularly, we always struggled with maybe something required a variance and it was an addition to the, there was something else happening. The whole issue of the reasonable accommodation will not be a discretionary action anymore. It's meant to streamline the process for disabled accommodations,
Okay, thank you.
if that helps.
Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. What if staff turns down an applicant who's going for a reasonable accommodation exception? Is there an appeal process?
So that's what this amendment also does. It designates the Disabled Access Board for the city as the appeal
Okay.
board.
I might add parenthetically that I'm a member of the Disabled Access Appeals Board, and I've been on it for 3 years, and in that time, we've not had a single meeting. So either staff is doing something really right with all of this, or
You're getting overpaid.
I'll just say it usually works out. We usually figure out, just like the elevator that came to the Planning Commission, I can't think of an instance where we denied an application for somebody needing a ramp in a front yard setback or an elevator shaft.
It was typically building department
Yeah.
from the code exceptions that we were,
building appeals.
and that was being driven by the building,
Right.
chief building inspector at that point.
Is this a separate? Is this separate from the building appeals?
Yes.
It's
Yeah, aren't you on that board?
Yeah, I'd like to be.
there's the building appeals, and then there's a disabled, and I'm on both too.
Yeah, and we've never had
We've
meetings.
never met on
They've
those
been
boards.
fabulous meetings.
I'm not on those boards. Yeah. Okay.
Is there?
But like, so we architects, I didn't even know there was a building appeals board.
Yeah.
So if we're getting feedback that we don't like from the building department on plan checks, we can appeal it to this board.
You would never get it.
Right.
Do they?
All right.
It's good to
We
know.
digress.
Any other questions for staff? Anybody in chambers or online that wishes to speak before this item? Seeing nobody in chambers, anybody online?
There are no hands raised.
We'll close the public hearing and bring this back to the commission. Eric?
Yeah, I think this item's in line with efficiencies to planning and building that we've been encouraging, such as putting things on the consent agenda, and especially with only 1 to 2 requests a year. So I think the Disabled Access Appeals Board seems to be the most appropriate place for those to go.
I move that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution recommending that the city council amend the zoning code, clarify the city's reasonable accommodation regulations as stated in the report.
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Freeman and a second by Commissioner Palmer. Any discussion? Can we get a roll call, please?
Sure. Chair Silva.
Yes.
Vice Chair Latassa,
Yes.
Commissioner Bluth,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Palmer,
Yes.
Commissioner Polly,
Yes.
and Commissioner Stoker.
Yes.
Okay, that item's been approved.
Thank you. Now, if there's anybody in chambers or online that wishes to speak to the commission about an item that is not on today's agenda, you may do so. And seeing nobody in chambers, anybody online?
I see no hands raised, but once again, information on how to participate remotely by Zoom or telephone is found at monterey.gov/agendas. If you're joining by telephone, dial *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. No hands raised.
Thank you. We'll close public comments and then move to our public hearing. Item number 6, 5 Lower Ragsdale Drive. Deny sign permit application S1260028 for one roof sign, applicant Stephen Lyon, owner Salinas Valley Memorial Healthcare System, Industrial Administration and Research District. And Matthew, I guess you're up.
And I'll be leaving the chambers for this item.
I
And what
will
we're
share
going
my
to forget
screen.
you when it's done. We won't forget about you.
I'll be back.
Good.
Good afternoon. My name is Matthew, and I am a planner with the City of Monterey's Planning Division. Today we're here to talk to you about 5 Lower Ragsdale for a sign permit application SI 260028 for a roof sign. The recommendation from staff is that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution to deny the sign permit application. The site is located in the southeastern portion of the city. The general plan designation is employment, and the zoning is IR 150 D2ES. The main part that we are looking at is IR industrial. This property is proposing one roof sign that is 27 feet by 131 feet. For a total of 3,537 square feet total. The sign itself would be matte, non-illuminated, and has been reviewed with the airport, who has signed off on it for safety. This sign is associated with the building tenant. The site itself, when you're coming towards the airport, is located approximately right here. There are 3 findings that are required for approval. 1, that the proposal achieves the purposes and objectives of the sign ordinance. 2, that the proposal is consistent with the citywide sign guidelines, or the Planning Commission determines that the proposal better achieves the purpose and objectives than strict application of those guidelines, and that requires Planning Commission's determination. And that 3, the proposal is consistent with the general plan. Staff found that the proposal is consistent with the general plan for number 3, but 1 and 2 I'm going to talk about a little more on the following slides. For number 1, there are 3 purposes and 3 objectives that have been established for the sign ordinance, and staff struggled in particular with one of the purposes and one of the objectives. That being purpose B, that signs should encourage that the city should encourage the effective use of signs primarily as a means of identification and communication, and to provide equality and equity among sign owners and those who wish to use signs. There are not many roof signs found in the city, if any. So we did not have a basis to establish that on. And for objective A, signs are a necessary tool, the primary purpose of which is to identify an entity from an adjacent street frontage. The objective has that qualifier of from an adjacent street frontage. And in the case that the sign exceeds the minimum necessary to reasonably identify that entity, it should be considered extraneous and subject to additional scrutiny, which is why we are here today. For finding 2, the proposal should be found consistent with the sign guidelines. And the definition for a roof sign, this is a bit of a square peg in a round hole situation. The definition for it was the best fitting for the proposed sign, that a sign or any portion thereof erected or painted on or over the roof, covering any portion of a building and either supported on the roof or on an independent structural frame or sign tower, or located on the side or roof of a penthouse, etc. It's essentially a sign on the roof. This has 5 guidelines associated with it, and staff struggled with 4 of the guidelines for roof signs. That roof signs are generally discouraged and should only be used when the character of the area support their use. There's no nearby examples, as stated before. A roof sign is generally appropriate if there are not good alternatives for wall signs, projecting signs, or hanging signs. There are existing walls on site without signage. That said, it is not necessarily the intent of this sign. A roof sign should not exceed 50 square feet in area. This is a little bit larger. A roof sign should be located on the same building face as the public entrance, and this faces upwards. In summary, this exceeded the maximum sign size based on the sign guidelines, does not identify an entity from an adjacent street frontage, and was found to be generally inconsistent with the existing character of the area. With that, staff's recommendation was for the Planning Commission to adopt the resolution to deny the sign permit application for the installation of one roof sign. That concludes staff's presentation. The applicant is also here and has a presentation of their own.
Thank you, Matthew. Questions for Matthew?
Would the purpose be for people to see the sign while they're flying into the airport?
I would direct that question towards the applicant.
All right, I will. Thank you.
I have a few questions.
Yes.
So is there any precedence for this kind of a horizontal, roof sign
In our jurisdiction
In our
or in general?
in our jurisdiction?
In our jurisdiction, there is 0 precedence in the Ryan Ranch area in particular. Wasn't able to see every single roof of the city, but it is not common if it exists at all.
Okay. And you mentioned that the airport board provided a comment on this, but I didn't understand what you said.
We had email correspondence with airport staff, which was not included as an appendix. It was in our records, and they have no issues with the sign being installed.
Okay. And there wouldn't be any lighting
Correct.
on the sign.
Correct.
Your fourth finding about the sign facing the entrance, I guess.
I can pull up the actual language.
Then in parentheses, you have faces upwards, or
I was just trying to summarize with my parentheses at the end there. A roof sign should be located on the same building face as the public entrance is, as it says on the sign guidelines. And in this case, since the sign faced upwards versus the public entrance,
I get it.
that's what that was going for.
Okay. Thanks, Matthew.
Okay, we'll open this up for public hearing. Anybody in chambers or online wishes to speak for this item? Seeing nobody in chambers, anybody online?
I believe that.
The
I believe the applicant's here.
I skipped over the applicant. I'm very sorry about that. Why don't you come up to the podium and give us a brief presentation, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Lyon. I'm here on behalf of the Salinas Valley Memorial Healthcare System, otherwise known as Salinas Valley Health. It's a community healthcare district established in 1953. Since 2001, Salinas Valley Health has owned 5 Lower Ragsdale. It holds a general practice clinic, it holds the VNA, and it holds an entity called Central Coast Cardiology. The last time I was before the board, I was presenting the Education Center for the Monterey Bay Aquarium. It was a very simple conversation. It was an easy conversation to have because it fit within the rules and everybody loved it. the last time I was here, when staff recommended denial of a project, was walking out those doors, looking at Casa Gutierrez and seeing the 8-foot tall wall with the green doors. Staff recommended denial of that because it didn't fit with the fence ordinance at the time. And yet, the context of wanting to do an 8-foot wall with the green doors was based on the context of an Adobe presence. And it seemed that even though it wasn't aligned with the ordinance, it made sense. What we're trying to do at SVH is just raise awareness that SVH has a presence in Monterey. The size of the sign is based on the fact that, to answer a council member's question, only people who are going to see it are people flying over. So we wanted to have the proportion of the sign make sense and not be silly. We did contact the airport first off because we recognize there's a health and safety concern for everything along the flight path. And as long as it wasn't illuminated and as long as it had a matte finish or it wouldn't reflect any more than the white roof that it's on reflects, they were fine with it. We're lucky that all of the healthcare districts around here between Montage, Salinas Valley Health, Natividad, we're in a pretty good space. You go to the north, you go to the south, healthcare can be challenging, and healthcare always is challenging. What we're trying to do at Salinas Valley Health with this proposal is to just raise awareness that we have a building that's there, that it's there for an alternative source of care for people who may not know that it's actually there. And we feel that in this manner, we're not producing something that's too glaring. And the proportion of the sign is based on the fact that it's a 60,000 square foot roof. I have one little thing I'll show. Okay, for those of you who haven't recently been to Salinas Valley Health, we just spiffed up the campus, painted it nicely. If you go to the next slide. This is the ground level signage at 5 Lower Ragsdale. It's pretty modest. There's a pylon on either side of the entry. There's not much once you get to the building except a little bit of signage on the glass next to it. People know that they're going there when they get there. There's also, I think, a directional sign pylon, and that's it. Go to the next sign. I wanted to point out that in the city of Monterey, for a reason, sometimes your signage ordinance isn't exactly followed. So the little red box there is probably 50 square feet. That's a sign that went through the process. It was determined to be appropriate for what it's trying to do, and it works. You can move to the next one. My old stopping grounds at the aquarium, again, Portola sardines. It's not a part, it's not consistent with your signage ordinance, and yet it works. It's bigger than 50 square feet. Move on. Golden State Theater. You could call that a sign. The point being, and that's enough, thank you. I'm here because what we're trying to do isn't part of your sign ordinance, but what we're trying to do, we believe, is consistent with what the community could benefit from just by having a community partner who's able to express themselves on their roof. That's the context of what we're trying to do. That's it. In terms of what I can present. Of course, any questions, I'd love to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Lyon. Any questions?
Just one. So who is your audience for the sign?
Anyone who flies over. So in the broader sense, community members know that it's there. To the extent that folks come in to the peninsula and they want to know what healthcare opportunities there are on the Monterey Peninsula or in the general vicinity, we would speak to them. Have a billionaire come in for concours and wants to donate to us, that'd be nice too. The idea is simply to be the presence that we are, and we're more of a presence along the Salinas Valley corridor, but we are a presence in Monterey, and we want to make that happen.
My follow-up question is, when you go to the baggage area of the airport, there's a rotating video advertising various educational institutions, hotels, ranges from, non-commercial to commercial. Do you advertise on that video screen?
I couldn't tell you, but I can look into it.
No more questions?
I got a quick question.
Yes.
Just as I looked at the photograph, there was actually a good photograph, and I think it was staff presentations of the flight path into the airport.
We can actually show you that on there as well.
And I guess to me, it looks like the roof of your building is so directly under the flight path that it wouldn't even be visible from a passenger window. Has anyone verified that that's?
I have a slide. Okay. So if you notice here, the official flight path is what it is, but all of us who fly in and out recognize that planes come along the flight path. They are not on a rope coming in. They're 1,000 feet to the north, they're 1,000 feet to the south. So to the extent that you say, who's going to see it, you're right. People who fly directly over that building won't, but there's any number of planes that routinely come and right around Ryan Ranch are trying to get aligned with the flight path. And so there is the possibility of a robust looking down and seeing that sign.
Any follow-up? Oh, okay. Thank you, Steve. Now we'll open this up for members of the public in the chambers who wishes to speak or online. You may do so. Seeing nobody in chambers, are there any hands raised?
There is a hand raised. I'll go ahead and allow Brad McCoy, who is one of the applicants, to unmute.
Thank you all. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me? In the chambers. Hey, I just thank you. I'm Brad McCoy. I'm the Vice President for Salinas Valley Health over construction, real estate facilities. Thank you for considering this. I wanted to I think Steve kind of hit most of the pertinent points on the head, but we just think that locational identity is a win-win. People know we're in the community, and the more they know we're in the community, especially flying in, makes a difference. So we see it as a win-win for Monterey, and we think this is really a harmless ask. I also want to speak directly to you, Commissioner Freeman. We do advertise at the airport. And then also to Commissioner Pauly, the flight line, official flight line is to the north of our property. And if you spend any time kind of standing in the parking lot of 5 Lower Ragsdale, you would see the most of the air traffic that does come in is to the north where the building is visible. So I just wanted to add those comments, and then thank you for letting me comment.
Thank you very much. Any other hands raised?
There are no other hands raised.
All right, we'll close the public hearing and bring this back to the commission.
I've got a comment. I'm a pilot. I've flown into Monterey, and it's highly unlikely that for passengers on any commercial plane looking out at the angles that they're going to ever see that sign. Now, if you brought up maybe something like Google Earth, eventually you might have got a higher resolution image on that. But either for a final approach or takeoff, it's not going to be visible from a passenger in an airplane. The pilot might see it, but that's, or maybe if you're in a helicopter, you might see it. But the vast majority of people who are going to be flying out of Monterey aren't going to be able to see that sign.
Justin?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of our job is to, you know, preserve the visual character of our town, and we've long discouraged things like billboards, and this is, I feel like it's going in the same direction. Not sure I want to create a precedent that these kinds of signs would proliferate in our town.
I have two comments. Just because something's never been done before doesn't mean it's a bad thing. But I think you're better off putting your advertising money into the advertising that's in the baggage area, where each and every person who has a checked bag will see your advertisement for Salinas Valley Health.
It's funny, I was on the ARC for a long time. This would definitely be the biggest sign we ever saw by some multiples of 10, I think. But I'm not completely convinced, on the other hand, because it's on a roof and there's no visual issue. There's no visual issue that we are used to, and you know, looking at sign applications, because the only people are going to see it are the birds and the planes, people on planes. So I don't know. I tend to support the staff recommendation on the basis of precedence. Yeah, so unfortunately, I'm not convinced that this is a great application, and I am tending to side with the staff on this one.
Yeah, I guess it's a tough one because I don't personally object to the sign. I'm not going to see it. Like you said, it's not a visually intrusive situation, but the precedent is a tough one, because what's to say that someone with an industrial building that has a large gabled roof can't come back and say that you allowed Salinas Valley Memorial to put their 1,000-foot sign on their roof. Why can't we do it? And that would be visually intrusive. So if we set that precedent of allowing roof signage, I just think it's sort of a dangerous path to go down. And I'd question the return on this investment. It doesn't like you said, that was my question when I was going on the flight path. Just because you're seeing a flight path line that's, 500 feet to the north of it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to, that changes your view angle from 90 degrees to 85 degrees. No one in that plane is going to see that sign. So I don't see the value in the sign. I don't see the necessary for it. I don't think it's necessary, and I think it sets a bad precedent. So I'd be against it.
I tend to agree with my fellow commissioners. I do think that this is precedent setting. And furthermore, the staff report indicated that there was some inconsistencies with certain findings, and they were irreconcilable. And so therefore, I'm in agreement with the commission on this one. So can we get a motion?
I'll move to deny the sign permit application SI-26-0028 for 5 Lower Ragsdale Drive.
I'll second.
So we have a motion to deny by Commissioner Palmer and a second by Commissioner Pauley. Can we get a roll call, please, Erica?
Sure. Chair Silva?
Yes.
Vice Chair Latassa?
Yes.
Commissioner Bluth?
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman?
Yes.
Commissioner Palmer?
Yes.
And Commissioner Pauley?
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. The decision is appealable to the City Council within 10 days. We have applications online or in our planning office.
Thank you, Erica. Here he is.
Oh, I was going to say, he's online as well. He's everywhere.
That's David.
Okay, we'll turn to commissioner comments. Any words of wisdom from my fellow commissioners? Yes, Eric.
I'd just like to say good job to the AV folks. I really like the new branding and letting people know. I don't know if you're doing this before. I don't remember seeing the agenda items, and so that, you know, when hours go on in council meetings and things like that, people can know where to look on the agenda. And I know it takes a little bit extra work since I've had that job before. So I just want to say good job to the new vendor, who I believe is the school district.
I didn't even notice till just now.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the screen and there's a banner on the bottom.
That looks good.
Yeah, it looks very professional. Comments?
Yeah, so last Wednesday, Sandy and I went to the Resilient Monterey meeting, and there were a couple of council people there, and it was probably about 30 to 40 people attended, I'd say. And it was very interesting. It was quite mild and technocratic. It was really just an introduction to the whole issue. So it's a huge issue, and we're going to be dealing with it the rest of our lives, I think. Or maybe we won't, but we probably will. And the hotter it gets, the higher the ocean will probably get. So it was an interesting meeting. We met the sort of principals of the consultants that we're going to be dealing with. And I was very encouraged by the general notion of adaptability, that unlike a specific design for Del Monte Boulevard we saw 7 years ago, this is just starting off. We have to take it one step at a time and always be prepared to modify this planning for resilience that as the decades move along. So I think they're off in the right direction, and I was encouraged by what I saw. There was one pretty formidable exhibit of a 2090 flooding down in the Lake El Estero area. So 2090 based on a 1 foot ocean level rise and a 100-year storm. And it was pretty amazing. It was, a bigger area of that part of the city than you would think. And I don't doubt that it's, it's all just based on the contours, what the elevation of the land is down there. So anyways, it's going to be an interesting process. I believe we're going to be seeing something within a couple of months, the first presentation. So we're off and crawling.
Off and crawling. It is interesting. Terry and I also saw attended the presentation the last time, and the consulting firm at that point, in horror, the only solutions that were seen were either a viaduct that zoomed over Del Monte Boulevard or a deep sea underwater tunnel that went underneath Del Monte Boulevard. And the people who were presenting from this it's called Winter Institute. It's not Nori Winter, but it's
Winter Consulting. Yep.
Winter Consulting, were showing steps that can be taken to protect existing property in various communities along the coastline of California. And those were the examples that they used. So a much, much more manageable approach than a huge, huge thing like a viaduct or a tunnel.
Is the presentation available anywhere
Well, I
online?
think they're coming to us. She said in a couple of weeks, they're going to bring their presentation to the Planning Commission to get everybody on the same page.
That's correct. The presentation from that meeting was, as Commissioner Latassa mentioned, a very intro level, base level kind of presentation highlighting the different flood scenarios based on the different levels of sea level rise, being that whether it's 1 foot or 3 feet and how far out we look. The actual plan is that we'll bring the entire vulnerability assessment to the commission in the next month. So not the first May meeting, but likely the second May meeting. And so not only will that information be presented to the commission, but the entire vulnerability assessment with basically highlighting all the identified vulnerabilities in the coastal transects for the city will also be presented at that time. The phase 2 of this project is to bring forward an adaptation plan after the vulnerability assessment has been approved and adopted by the commission and the council. So it's kind of a 2-phase project. The first just kind of identifying where those gaps are and where the city's most vulnerable. And that second phase will be a plan to identify actual adaptation measures. As Commissioner Latassa mentioned, those can vary from hardening and hardened infrastructure improvements all the way to forms of managed retreat. So likely what will be most realistic is going to be some level of hybrid approach based on the context of the sites throughout the city's coastal zone. But that's all in phase 2, and right now we're just looking at where those, identifying where the primary critical vulnerabilities are in the city. So that's going to be presented to the commission in full soon. We can make that presentation available though, and happy to do that. It's actually available currently on Have Your Say Monterey page in the Resilient Coast Monterey project.
So they had a bunch of posters up, and they had handouts. And they were, like I said, it's a very mild sort of just an organizing principles kind of an approach. But I think so all these things are online.
That's correct. And then we're going to be posting the feedback that we received at that meeting as well. Will be continuously placed online as well.
Thank you.
It's concerns about funding going to be a part of those, part of these plans, because I just cannot even imagine.
So the idea is that there's a lot of funds available through grants that have been made available to the federal government, and as well as various nonprofits, and as well as the state level. The issue is that most of those funding opportunities, in order to qualify or meet the criteria for those funding availabilities, you have to have an adopted plan. They want to see that you've thought about this issue holistically and have a plan for not just project by project, because they want to see these funds actually be meaningful. So the idea is that we have an adopted plan identifying that vulnerability, and then once we get to that adaptation level, have actual measures and specific projects with hopefully about 30% design, so that we can be really competitive for these grant opportunities for these projects. That's an excellent question. It's definitely going to be, as you can imagine, the primary concern for large infrastructure projects is the funding.
Even just Del Monte Avenue, along window on the bay, sewers, seawalls, everything. So yeah,
absolutely.
How does the Coastal Commission interplay with all of this?
Yeah, so this is a primary, as you can imagine, a critical issue for the Coastal Commission, that they're wanting cities and local jurisdictions to give attention. It's kind of an overwhelming issue for a lot of jurisdictions to wrap their heads around and to get consensus and a community vision as to how they want to approach this. But this project's actually being funded by a grant that was received by the Coastal Commission. So we received a local assistance grant in 2025 that's initiated this project, and we're hoping to get this plan adopted so that we can continue to apply for grants that are issued through the Coastal Commission and then Ocean Protection Council as well. The Coastal Commission reviews this plan as we go through the preparation of the plan. They also going to be reviewing and approving the plan. Since it is being prepared through a Coastal Commission grant, they have their own set of requirements that they want to see included in the plan. So it goes to their review as well to make sure we're hitting all those boxes. So to answer your question, they're very heavily involved.
All right. Any other comments? Informational reports?
Wait, look this way. I haven't brought up my favorite store downtown today,
Yeah.
I already included it in the minutes.
and I always want to find out what's going on with it.
I believe they're still operating.
That's
I
true.
haven't frequented I haven't frequented the area in some time, but
There's stacks of water right inside the front door now.
I have noticed that.
Yeah. So Any, are
There's
they,
a sale on old golf shirts. I'm sorry.
so,
I would direct all comments to code enforcement.
okay.
Is there still been active code enforcement?
I would not be aware of that. I would have to verify that with our code enforcement officer.
And I know we're about to start seeing a lot of plans. We are low on staff. I would love to get at some point the temperature of the rest of the planning commission to see if the entire planning commission would like to talk about the rec trail specific plan, not just, I've brought up in the past the issue of motorized vehicles on the path, but it's not just that. That plan was done 35 years ago, and it was not at that time probably the busiest street in the city. And at that time, Ruth Freeland was the head of that, and it was all the businesses had to face away, things like that. It's changed. I think it is time to do that. It's probably us and Parks and Rec or something. And I know the city's mob, but I'd like to see if anybody else wants to look at that. Again, it isn't just what's going on the trail as far as motorized vehicles, but it's also, should we allow more businesses to face the trail, even though slowly they have been, but that's not how it's written. So again, I'd like to see if other people feel that it's time to. Again, I know there's lots to do in
Lots of
those.
vacant lots that face the trail. There's, real estate, undeveloped real estate facing the trail right now. That's another issue too.
And the original plan is really old. It definitely deserves a relook. And I think it could, having the businesses have more of a frontage to the recreational trail would be a real plus, I think, for the community. Time to move away from the restrictions that were set aside originally.
At least have a good discussion about it every 35 years or so.
Now, would this be something that you would look at in terms of agendizing just as an open discussion? Or is it something that you're asking staff to provide some type of a report?
No, I'd like to start with, I think, an open discussion, but I wanted to see if other people wanted to discuss it too.
All for it.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, me.
Me too.
The concern I have, which is why I brought this up, is just trying to respect resources.
Staff can't write a report right now. Do you have extra time right now?
Actually had a feeling you're going to bring this up, so I have it right now. I think it'd be a perfect conversation to have in May, when we're going to be bringing forward the entire staff work program to get feedback from the commission. We've already taken note of the interest in revisiting this plan. It is quite old, as was mentioned. So I think that would probably be the easiest place to have that discussion as the larger discussion where we're looking at all the priorities for the commission and having that conversation.
And then lastly, the second meeting in May, I will not be available.
Okay.
Me too. The second meeting. I will
Second meeting in May.
And
Okay.
not to add too much on top of everything else, but a specific plan for Garden Road would be great too.
That'll be included in that conversation as well.
Yeah, that's a really good idea right there. One other thing while we're broadly on the topic of specific plans, I know as we've been working in the backyard here, Marie Goulet of Wildland Workshop has brought up the fact that the approved plant list for this, I know it sounds like a very minor thing, but it's like grossly outdated and doesn't include native drought resistant plants and just doesn't. And they've worked and generated a fresh list, and they've actually gotten the nod of approval from the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District on that list. And I believe, Levi, that has to go to the city council, or can that come to the planning commission? It's just, it would give landscape architects working in the downtown Monterey area a lot more leeway in terms of doing nicer planting schemes compared to what's on the list right now. And I know they've sort of voluntarily put a lot of time into that.
Yeah, the existing list lives in these downtown specific plans, so it would be processed as a specific plan amendment that would be approved through Planning Commission and the City Council.
And what does that require? How much staff time does that require, if they've sort of done the legwork to generate the list, how much staff time does that take to get something like that agendized?
Typical, specific plan goes through the same, an amendment process goes through the same process as the general plan amendment. So it requires tribal consultation, SB 18 requirements, a certain level of public outreach as typical with specific plan amendments. As you mentioned, this is not a huge amendment, so we'd be looking at coordination with specific stakeholder groups of that are in that industry in the community. But there is typically that initial 90-day tribal consultation that's required by state law.
Just for
native plant?
plant list.
It's a specific plan amendment, so it's the actual adopted list as a part of the specific
It's
plan.
anchored into the specific plan. Unfortunately.
Wow.
Not just.
What would probably make the most sense for something at that level is to tie that into something that's more of an omnibus amendment that is accompanied with other types of changes or updates to the plan rather than a standalone amendment such as that.
Is there a way to, if we do specific plans in the future, to structure them in such a way where things like plant lists or paint palettes or any number of minor
Or
things
setbacks.
can just be referred to as a an attachment or an amendment that then can be reconsidered on a regular basis? Is there a way to structure these specific plans that way so we don't get into this trap?
Possibly. It just depends on, as you mentioned, how it's structured in the plan. Typically, specific plans are long-term vision documents, so they're not actually typically structured in such a way that they're amended year after year. But it's not that there are ways to do that, similar to how if you recall the parking standards for the city are refer in the zoning code or actually refers to a resolution adopted by the planning commission. So in that instance, if the planning commission wanted to update the parking standards, they would simply just adopt a new resolution and it wouldn't necessarily go through the zoning amendment process. So there are ways that things can be structured. It's just, it gets a little bit complicated as we move into this area of objective standards. So that's kind of the give and take that comes with objective standards, is they don't allow for much flexibility. But then you run into issues like this as well. But I think it'd make the most sense to probably, when we're discussing the work program, if there's other areas of the downtown specific plan that any of the commission has identified.
The specific plan was adopted, 10 years ago, maybe?
Well, we most recently amended it last year when we removed the parking requirement. So, and we went through that
Right, I remember that.
process that I just laid out a moment ago. So again, it's not that it's not doable. It's just that
The point I was trying to make is, if it was just 10 years ago, and I remembered when when we all talked about it, why didn't we have drought tolerant? I mean, why do we have
It's
these?
like none of the plants planted on the city hall grounds are on the approved plant list. Like literally.
Yeah, I
it's
must have
a-
just glossed over that section, because why would we adopt something just 10 years ago, which isn't a
I mean,
long.
there may be drought tolerant plants on there, but there's a wide array of drought tolerant plants that aren't on there that give landscape architects a broader palette to work with. And like it's a very constrained list, and
Yeah,
very few, if any, downtown projects are abiding by it.
yeah.
But here we've got this big project down here that's being scrutinized, and they don't have any leeway with their
Are these,
planting.
is this part of a guideline or a standard?
It's a plant list that apparently is part of
it's an
the,
adopted list.
it's an adopted list.
So that's really a standard then.
Correct. And I don't want to be the one to say it, but the downtown specific plan was adopted in 2013. So
Okay, well, I'm losing track of time.
13
As I
years,
get
not
more
10
you made me do it. You made me do that.
Okay, informational reports, Levi.
Sure. As Commissioner Latassa and Commissioner Freeman mentioned, we had an excellent workshop last week and community engagement opportunity for the Resilient Coast Monterey project. I think we've talked about what was included in that meeting at length, but I did want to mention that it was going to be coming before this commission for consideration We'll try to miss that second May meeting since it sounds like we're going to have some commissioners absent. And I think it'd probably be interested in hearing that item. So I wanted to provide a quick update on that. Additionally, a follow-up to the April 21st City Council meeting. If you were tuning in, you may have seen that the council considered various changes to Chapter 37 of the Monterey City Code, and that's the preservation of trees and shrubs ordinance for the city, to kind of discuss the restrictions on tree removals in the city. Particularly what's considered a protected tree and what process is required for the removal of protected trees. Really, the purpose of that meeting was to get some general direction on what the council had an appetite for as far as proposed changes and whether or not, and kind of to brief the council on what level of environmental review would be required for those changes. So they had a pretty healthy discussion about that, and ultimately they did approve the staff recommendation to move forward with the proposed changes. However, with the caveat that any action on that project would be placed on hold until the budget is adopted. The primary purpose for that hold is that with the proposed changes that are being considered would require the preparation of environmental impact report, which is quite costly. And as you're aware, the city council is grappling with budgetary issues at this point in time. So I think they wanted to see how the rest of the budget discussion played out before giving staff the green light to initiate that project. Also noted in the agenda report is just some tentative items that are scheduled for the May 12th, 2026 Planning Commission meeting. It's going to be, looks like 3 different development projects, and one was a referral. You may recall it's the project at 2200 North Fremont Street, previously a 3-story mixed-use building there. I believe it's Airport and North Fremont.
It is.
And it's a revised project that's going to be coming back to the commission on referral from community response.
This project?
It is. Yeah,
All the letters that we saw were on that.
that's correct.
Yeah.
So just to clarify why you're already receiving comments on that, even though it hasn't been noticed yet, that project did qualify for an administrative approval process under the North Fremont specific plan. However, that process does allow for projects to be referred to the Planning Commission if the community member objects to the approval of the project. So you're starting to see comments come in on that one, even though it's scheduled for the May 12th meeting. So that's why. Probably we'll receive more comments between now and that meeting. Also, that's not on here. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to be bringing forward the work program for the planning division to kind of be discussed with the commission, and then this will help kind of formulate what what work program we take forward to the city council. Since it sounds like we're going to have some folks out on the second meeting in May, we'll try to get that onto the first meeting so that everyone can be involved in that conversation. And that's all we have.
Unfortunately, I'll be out on the 12th on work business.
Okay. Great.
Thank you, Levi. Okay, that's another wrap. Thank you, everybody.
Fabulous. Good to see you.